Hello there, internet. So in my last video, I mentioned how I meant to make one season 2 Scum España review video, but then I ended up talking for 2 hours. I could not make a single concise video about this, and I had to break it up into parts. So this part of the video had no intro. Now I am filming the intro. Basically, in episode 6, there's a clip that got, a little bit of heat. There was some discourse going on around that clip, and I figured that I should probably talk about it before I reviewed anything to do with episode 6, because then I just figured that if I were to talk about episode 6, but then didn't talk about this one clip, then people in the comments would focus on that. I don't know if that's a legit worry of mine. So to answer the question of the title, is my fave problematic? Aren't we all problematic? I am problematic. You, the viewer, you are problematic. Scum España is problematic, but your favorite Scum remake is also problematic. Your favorite show is also problematic. I do not say this to be dismissive of anything. It's just like a fact of life. Hopefully we're all learning and growing and trying to be the best person that we can be. I feel that when it comes to any sort of discourse around something being problematic or something that's like really widely criticized or whatever, the loudest voices, it's gonna come from people who just want to escalate the conflict, are not interested in having a constructive or productive conversation, just trying to like drag it down in order to feel morally superior. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum are going to be people, quieter voices. They're not especially interested in conflict. However, they have a criticism and they voice it completely respectfully. It's not about wanting to one up anybody else. They have a concern and they voiced it respectfully. I think that when the first voices that you hear are from the people who are blowing everything out of proportion, trying to escalate the conflict, then it's very easy to respond by saying, haters gonna hate, what the fuck ever. But then you have to always remember that there might, even if you haven't personally come across people like this, there might be people who have more legit criticisms and express those criticisms in a constructive way. So, about pansexuality versus bisexuality, are they the same thing? Not quite. I'm not personally pansexual or bisexual, so yeah, you can take what I'm gonna say with a grain of salt or completely disregard it or whatever. I don't understand this controversy as being anything other than like semantics, and I don't understand how saying this word pansexual, it basically means the same thing as bisexual, how that's exactly the same thing as saying pansexuality doesn't exist at all. But anyway, what are the differences between pansexuality and bisexuality? Okay, so the first explanation that I heard that made sense to me, but that was later, like, I guess debunked or whatever. Bisexuality, as explained by Nora and Madi in the original Scum, attraction to both men and women, liking both binary genders, whereas pansexual is different because you are attracted to all genders, including non-binary genders. But then I learned that bisexuality is actually inclusive of non-binary identities. It doesn't necessarily mean being attracted to two genders. It means being attracted to more than one gender. So the second explanation that I've heard, and this one really confused me, pansexuality being defined as being attracted to a person, not their sex or their gender, whereas with bisexuality, you are attracted to their sex or gender. The point where I got confused was like, but there are bisexual people who fit the pansexual label. When I looked up what does bisexual mean, I never came across this definition that excluded people who had no preference when it came to somebody's sex or their gender. I was a little bit confused about where that definition of bisexuality even came from. In saying that pansexuality and bisexuality are the same thing, it's not necessarily true, because there are people who are bisexual who are not interested in every single gender there is out there. Some of them might just be interested in two genders, and some of them might have a preference. They might be interested in different genders in different ways. So they can definitely fit the bisexual label without fitting the pansexual label. I feel like the proportionate response to hearing that pansexuality and bisexuality are exactly the same thing is to say, you know what? I thought that too when I first heard of pansexuality. However, here's the definition of pansexuality. And yes, you might hear people who identify as bisexual. They might describe their sexuality in a way that sounds exactly the same as pansexuality. So I can definitely understand why you might think that they're exactly the same thing. But here's why some people might prefer the term pansexual over bisexual. It feels to me like every time there's a controversy with one of the Skam remakes, the go-to response was, but the original did XYZ and you weren't upset by that, so why are you upset by this? I usually hate that counter argument, one, because like you didn't even know that I existed back in 2016. You don't know every thought that I have about the original season 3. But also, I feel like the remakes serve more as a second draft, and that as we go through remaking the show, we should look to what we can improve about it. So when it comes to like the pansexuality versus bisexuality thing, it would make sense if I heard people give that explanation for why they are offended by this, but maybe they weren't as offended by the original scene. However, if you have not made this argument in particular, this does not apply to you. Just know that. But I've heard some people, their counter argument is, well, in the original, Magnus just wanted to know the difference and he was confused. But in the Spanish version, Nora flat out just said that pansexuality didn't exist. And I'm like, no, I don't actually see the difference here. Nora said pansexuality was the same thing as bisexuality, which is what Magnus said. And then he asked, what's the fucking difference? There is no difference. Of course, the original show is in a language that, like, what, 0.5% or 0.05% of the world's population can speak, and it can get translated differently. So I've seen subtitles where it just stops with what's the fucking difference then, and then another set of subtitles with what's the fucking difference? There is no difference. I watched the original season 3 live. When the clip dropped, I'm pretty sure it was this set of subtitles, okay? I didn't really see any outroar whatsoever. In fact, people just want to throw a parade for the boys simply for not being homophobic. And even if you watch the original show with these subtitles as opposed to these subtitles, I still think that the original clip was significantly more problematic than the Spanish clip. Not only do we have Magnus saying that pansexuality and bisexuality are the same thing, I feel like what's far more offensive in that clip, casual use of a slur for a group of people that he does not belong to, but also the casual racism here with Maddie. I don't remember seeing anybody else bring that up. By the way, I'm not telling you that you should or shouldn't be offended by this specific line, but I don't like that that line is the difference between Scum España being canceled or not. And I just can't help but think that there's a double standard when it comes to female characters. When it comes to guys, as long as they're not openly homophobic, if they say something ignorant, but like deep down, they're trying to be supportive and their heart's in the right place, he's a little confused, but he's got the spirit. But when a girl says something kind of ignorant, but her heart is in the right place, canceled. I'm not cool with that at all. I'm not saying this to call out every single person who was offended by this clip. I'm just saying that specific reasoning of, oh no, the Norwegian guys were a lot more woke than the Spanish girls. Fuck no, fuck that. But if you or somebody that you know decided not to watch Skam España Season 2 based off of that. I support your decision 100%. We have a limited time here on planet Earth. There are so many shows that you could watch. There's so many things that you could do with your 5 hours of time. And you can decide to watch something or not to watch something for any reason, big or small. You do not have to justify that reasoning to me, just like I don't have to justify my reasoning to you of why you're not gonna get a season 3 review, most likely. One, these videos take long as fuck time. Somebody's decision not to watch season 2 does not affect me at all in the slightest. My decision not to watch the Nora seasons doesn't affect anybody else in the slightest. I think that we can all coexist. It's all fine. Until you start making claims that Norwegian boys are more woke than the Spanish girls, because I will fight you on that. But since you're not going to get my review of season 3 because I'm most likely not going to watch it. Anyway, as a consolation for that, here are my feelings about Nora and Alejandro so far. Now in season 1, Viri had a crush on Alejandro. She still does, but the feelings were not mutual. He was a little bit mean when she confronted him about the herpes, but he was not nearly as awful as some of the other Williams. Like, this was not this or this. You know what I'm saying? Alejandro told Nora right in front of Viri, right in front of all of the other girls, that he liked Nora, and she said, "You only want the girl who told you no to say yes." Basically, you don't like me, you just like the chase. And I think that she said that because when things were going down between Viri and Alejandro back in season 1, he wasn't interested in her when it was very clear that she was interested in him. But he only started texting her when she stopped texting him. It's like, oh, he's not actually interested in you. He's only interested in the chase. So I think that that's why she said that. I'm sure she's like in denial of what feelings that she has for Alejandro. But yeah, anyway, he wasn't much of an asshole to Viri, and then he apologized to her like within the next week. Completely fine with that. I do not have any hard feelings towards him for how he treated Viri. He acknowledged even in this season that he was an asshole to Viri, and he seemed remorseful of that in ways that the original William, who was so much worse to Vilda, was not. Chris introduces the girls to Joanna and tells all the girls that they're going out. And then there's this karaoke moment where you have the more than words scene. And I like this significantly more than I like the whole more than words scene from the original. One, Nora and Alejandro. Everything so far has been a big improvement from Norhelm. When Nora decided to serenade William by singing more than words, it just came out of nowhere for me and seemed completely unearned and didn't work for me at all. But this one was better because it works better within context. Like, she wasn't specifically serenading Alejandro. She just decided to sing at a party, and Alejandro really liked her singing and was very transfixed. Skam España did a very good job of referencing different parts from the original while still creating something completely unique that works for their show.
Don't hide. I'm too shy to say, but I hope you stay. Don't hide away.
Anyway, what problem did I have with Alejandro back in season 1? Well, there is this clip. It was called Excuses, or at least the English translation of that clip was called Excuses. And I don't really like what went down there. Nobody has to earn the right to say no. No always means no. No does not mean convince me. No does not mean harass me until I give up and say, yeah, fine, whatever the fuck. And you also don't need to jump through any hoops to earn the right to say no. No means no. But another thing that worried me about that clip, it was not just what Alejandro said. It was the fact that Eva was just laughing, playing it off, oh, Nora's so in love, and there was no, hey, that's a little creepy, that's gross, stop it. Wasn't cool with that. But the good news is that in this season, he did not follow up on that shit. He did not engage in any behavior that I would classify as manipulative, blackmail, harassment. He was not disrespectful at all. It took me a minute to figure out that this part where he tells Nora that she's beautiful, oh yeah, that parallels with when William told Nora that she was beautiful. But I like this a lot more. He didn't come across as cocky and arrogant. Instead, he comes across as vulnerable, which I think makes him a lot more likable. When Nora said that he was an asshole to Viri, he didn't provide any excuses for his behavior. He just said, yes, that's right, I was. Which makes his apology to Viri come off as, you know, genuine. I like that we see Nora like voluntarily spend time with him, no blackmail involved. Hopefully they kept that up in Nora's season. The main thing that I'm worried about is, of course, this whole thing. I hate it. Also, I forgot to mention that I did really like it back in season 1 when they were all at Alejandro's Halloween party and nobody understood what Nora's Halloween costume was. And then we had Alejandro. He understood what her costume was. I thought that was a good touch. As you guys probably know, I don't like the original William at all. I made this whole PowerPoint about that. And so far, when we go like point by point, what were my issues with the original William? I'm not seeing those issues present with Alejandro. Again, I didn't like that excuses clip, but he's been all right with boundaries. When it comes to boundaries, I'd put him between like a Yusuf and a Mohammed. Like he's somewhere in the middle there, and that's definitely something I can live with. And I think the logical question is, if you can live with that, then why aren't you watching season 3? Well, there's stuff on that PowerPoint for things that are to come, and I don't want to put myself through that if it's going to be nearly as bad as this one. But you know what, I am willing to put myself through. You might have seen with Druk season 4, I was pretty much on edge because season 4 was a hot mess, but I felt like the difference between season 4 and season 2 for me, I actually am looking forward to seeing the season 4 is being remade, and I'm looking forward to seeing that be fixed. I very much want all of the saunas to have their seasons, and I very much want them to do everything to fix those seasons, whereas I'm more apathetic when it comes to the season 2s or to the Norhelm seasons. I have very good feelings about how we're gonna handle Amira's season. You guys know I'm not interested in that love triangle, but I feel like Skam España, they're not gonna drop the love triangle. And for those of you guys who are watching season 3 of Skam España, I want you to keep an eye out for Chris and Joanna. Make sure that they do not break up, because I do not want them breaking up, and I do not want Chris to go and make out with Spanish Yusuf in Amira's season. Although I guess the silver lining to that is one of the things that I like about Skam España. One, they fixed a lot of problems that I had with the original, but also they brought up some of the problems that I had with the original, but they had the characters say things that I felt like the original characters should have said in their situation. So for example, Chris calls out Joanna for hitting on her when she had a boyfriend the whole time. I loved that. Yeah, it would have been better if she just didn't have the boyfriend at all. But since she did, I love that Chris called her out on that. So I'm thinking that if Chris makes out with Spanish Yusuf, Amira's not going to let that slide. And if Spanish Yusuf goes on and tries to hit on Amira, she's going to be like, what the fuck, dude? You made out with my best friend. Yes, I saw that because I was there at that fucking event. How dare you? And then you're gonna hit on me? What the fuck, man? What the fuck is going on? But also, you know how Isak gets beat up in the middle of season 4 at that Sing event? I'm hoping that since the Isak characters got beat up already in Skam España and in What the Fuck, then we don't even need that fight scene in season 4. We already saw that character get beat up. We don't need any more fights. But let's hope for that. Let's hope that Scum España will give me 10 episodes. 10 episodes all about Amira. Okay? I'm already counting on it being good because they've already done such a good job with Amira so far, and I'm excited to see more of her in her season.